Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I wanted to give my honest thoughts about Fire Emblem Engage, give it a little bit of a review, talk about what I liked, what I don't like, what I feel the game does well, what I feel the game could definitely improve on. Overall, for those of you who just want to know what my score out of 10 is and how I feel about it, I'm just going to restate the title. I think this is a solid 9 out of 10 game. I think it is a flawed gem. I think that there is by far more good than bad here, though the game does have some issues, and let's talk about them. First of all, gameplay-wise, Fire Emblem Engage is great. I was a little bit worried about having so many abilities, so many skills, so many different things. Stuff like Three Houses and Fates can get overwhelming with how many skills, abilities, options the player has, Three Houses especially. But I think Engage does a good job of balancing that, wherein, yes, you're encouraged to try different classes, each class is a class skill, but the class skills aren't really that impactful, and you don't even get to keep them afterwards. You're only limited to 2 skills you inherit through SP. The SP you get is exceedingly limited, and so there's a lot of choice, a lot of hemming and hawing over things. I think that design of built-in scarcity is great. I feel like the decision to just give people whatever they want through the DLC, just give them free stacks of SP and money and items and everything, is awful because it screams design the problem, sell the solution to me, which I think is terrible design etiquette. However, I will note that the game is perfectly fine and playable, and if anything, really well balanced without it. And so I think gameplay and difficulty curve and all that are pretty good. Difficulty curve, by the way, I haven't played Maddening yet, but from everything I've seen and heard, it is high difficulty, but reasonable. It's not like Three Houses Maddening, it's not like Conquest Lunatic, it's not like Awakening Lunatic or Lunatic Plus. It is reasonable, high difficulty, makes you think all throughout the game, but still has room for experimentation, room for messing around, room for error, room to figure out what you're doing. You don't have to fully pre-plan your run in order to succeed in Maddening. And even in Hard, I really like the way Hard is balanced. For the most part, I was able to have a game that still challenged me, and I was still overcoming, but I wasn't crushing, at least up until near the very end. The last couple of maps, I definitely felt like I just far exceeded the power of the enemies, and so Hard does fall off a little bit towards the end there in that respect, and I wasn't even grinding all that much. I played a handful of skirmishes just because I wanted a little bit extra money here or a little bit extra ore there. I didn't grind for experience deliberately, but I still felt overpowered by the end. But, that's hard mode. I'm sure Maddening is more restrictive on that with their restrictive resource system. I think that's good. Unit balance-wise, I love the ideas Engage has brought to the table. I think they're executed fairly well. I think Cavalry gets a little bit of the shaft, particularly in terms of mainline Cavaliers and Paladins. I feel like they could have given Cavaliers and Paladins one extra move to kind of give them a little bit of a niche. As it stands, they feel like, why would you ever use these units over a flyer or over a side-grade cavalry with better stats and better weapon access? Like, for instance, why would you use a paladin when you can have a wolf knight who's faster and has knife access, So I think that's kind of where it's a downside, but honestly, if Cavaliers are a little bit underpowered, that's not the worst thing in the world. I think Armor Knights, they made Armor Knights feel incredible. They made Thieves feel incredible. They made solid infantry units like Heroes and Warriors feel important to have. Made you want to use Heroes and Warriors more than just spamming Paladins or Wolf Knights or whatever, even though Wolf Knights are still good. I think that they've managed to somehow hit a very good balance with the units and the unit types and unit classes Is there maybe more polishing that could be done in there? Probably. But I think overall I was very surprised and very pleasantly surprised by how the unit balance worked. Another thing I think is pretty good is the map design overall. Having most bosses be able to move makes things interesting. Having a little bit better enemy AI that cares about chain attacks, that cares about using stabs like entrap and warp in interesting ways, I think is good. I think they probably could have done a little bit more with that, but for what it is, this is probably the best AI we've had in a Fire Emblem game, maybe ever? Although Thracia AI is pretty good, but Thracia AI also makes some weird mistakes, so give or take there. I think this is definitely the most robust AI we've ever had in a Fire Emblem game, and that includes the extra AI challenges they throw in on Maddening, where enemies won't attack if they can't hit or can't deal damage, which I think is a good thing, and I think it's a good thing to limit that to Maddening only, because that is a meaningful change in difficulty that doesn't necessarily need to happen in lower difficulties. Like, I played on hard, I loved being able to just take 0 damage, have, infinite avoid, Zelkov and Yunaka, but I think that is a little abusive, and so turning that off, disabling that for Maddening, I think is overall a good idea. Anyway, that's just like the game design. The map design specifically, I think is pretty good. There are some places where it's a little bit bland. There are several maps that don't have any, terrain features at all, which kind of gets a little frustrating. I think that some of the map gimmicks are a little bit, can be a little bit overplayed. There's not too many gimmick maps, though. It's not Revelations. It's not, Fates in general, but it's especially not Revelations. I think it's fun. I think it's fair. There are a lot of reinforcements on some of the later maps, but they're not from abusive places. They're not same turn reinforcements, ambush spawns as they get called by the community. I think the map design overall is pretty solid. I would need to go on a map by map basis to kind of point out, good ones, bad ones, whatever, but overall for a Fire Emblem game, for a modern Fire Emblem game, the map design is quite good. The story is passable, the story is decent. I made a video talking about how, I think the story has its moments. I titled the video in a very clickbait way to say, is Engage's story better than Three Houses? Overall, I don't think so. Overall, I think Three Houses has a better, more developed world and story, but I do like that Engage keeps it simple, it keeps it fun, it keeps it fresh, it keeps it just coming again and again. I think that there are certain elements that really are terrible about the story. I think that its insistence on trying to redeem every villain at the last possible moment sucks. I think that it's unearned, and I think it doesn't work properly. I think that some of their emotional scenes go on for a little bit too long, but I don't hate the game for trying to have emotional scenes, for trying to have this or that, because ultimately, what is the game's story? It's a collection of Fire Emblem tropes going in, honestly, somewhat of an interesting way, and if you analyze it on a scene-by-scene, trope-by-trope basis, in general, they're handled pretty well. Now, the game's plot as a whole maybe has something left to be desired, but I think that, for just a fun, tropey mess of a game, it's not bad. It certainly is better than a game that tries, in my opinion, the story half tries. The story tries to be fun, tries to be a fun adventure. It doesn't try to be this world, massive epic about the realities of war, which Fates and Three Houses have tried to do, and to varying degrees of success and failure. I think that because this game is just unashamedly, it is what it is. If you allow yourself to enjoy that, you'll have a good time. Otherwise, if you try to take it super seriously, if you try to analyze that at a serious level, it's not going to hold up. Game flow is something that I was also surprised was pretty good. I made a mention when I finished the game on the stream, but every time I had a session that was lasting several hours, it felt like I had been playing for half that time. That's how you know a game has pretty good flow. because it just gets you engaged, it gets you playing, and it gets you to not want to stop. I think that some of the Somniel stuff, bouncing back and forth between Somniel and chapters, and all the stuff at the Somniel, we'll get to the Somniel. Somniel aside, the game flow is pretty good, and even going back and forth between the Somniel and chapters is fine. Where the game has issues, though, let's talk about the Somniel. Let's talk about the UX design for a bit. The game loves to hide basic information from the player. Why can't I sort my bond rings? Why can't I see the strength of my weapons? Why can't I see what support bonuses my units are giving each other? Why is this information hidden? Why do I have to go all the way to the arena, which is a separate loading screen, and then go all the way back to the ring chamber every time I want to level up one of my emblems? It was cute for the first time. It's not that exciting or interesting the 20th time. There's just a lot of fluff in the Somniel that feels like it was underdeveloped. It feels like they kind of just, we'll throw in a little mini-game here, a little mini-game there, and then just didn't really care to polish it up. Didn't really care that the workouts, half the workouts like break your hand if you try to do them. Didn't care that, this Wyvern minigame actually has like the worst control scheme, and no matter what I do, it always defaults, not even defaults, it always just goes back to motion controls and just keeps drifting in motion controls, such that I end up looking backwards. What is that all about? I don't know. I think that a lot of things about the Somniel need work. I think the UX design needs work. I think its information clarity needs a lot of work. That said, I think the game is still pretty fun. I think it's definitely worth a shot. It's worth looking into. If you have any interest in Fire Emblem, this might be a decent place to start, so long as you take into consideration there's a lot of tropey mess here, there's some complexity here, but it's not as complex of a wall as Three Houses is. It's not as different from core Fire Emblem as Three Houses is, and for that, I'm grateful. Anyway, like I said, 9 out of 10, it's a flawed gem. I think there's a lot of great stuff going for it. I think that there's just a couple of really obvious problems that hold it back. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts on Gage are in the comments down below. Till then, this is Mythical Zenith signing out.